Rieger getting traded to Minnesota changes nothing.
6'4" guys running 4.4s. These guys don't grow on trees. And a lot of times I'm willing to bet on, especially long term, on the freak athlete.
You don't ever want to overreact to what guys look like in preseason. There's been a ton of preseason all-stars that never make rosters or never pan out.
Welcome to Belly Up Fantasy Live. We're a couple minutes late here. That one's on me, finishing some things up really quick. We are so excited for week 2 and had such a great time with week 1. I'm, again, so excited. We finally have football back. Of course, I am joined, as always, by Chris Dowhower, and we also have a new guest. So, Justin, please introduce yourself.
Hi, guys. I'm Justin Rinderle. I'm from Salina, Ohio. I've been playing fantasy for 15 plus years now. So just looking forward to the rest of this season and getting away with week 2.
Yeah, man, we are super excited to have you. Of course, I am your host, Adam L'Heureux. You know enough about that. So guys, how did we do week 1 with our fantasy teams? How are we all stacked up? We were talking a little bit about it before the show started. Chris, Justin, how we doing?
Yeah, started off.
Chris.
I care in about 3 leagues I kind of focus on predominantly, and those 3 leagues I went 2-1. I didn't really have any players, go off or anything like that. One of the leagues that we got to do while we were out at the expo. You guys got to watch us out there in Canton, Ohio. Had Cooper Kupp going, so that was kind of my big play for that week. Cooper Kupp was somebody I definitely have been huge on. That I think that the demise of Cooper Kupp and kind of the regression people are calling for is definitely not going to happen. So I was happy to see that. But overall, my team did pretty good. Other teams kind of underachieved, but I was happy. It was week 1.
There we go. Justin, how we doing?
So I got about 7 leagues I care about a lot, and I went 7 for 7 in all of those. Riding on the back of Saquon, so pretty excited about that. Finally paid off, holding on to him for a while.
Very excited. I'm having a slow start in redraft this year. It's been rough. It's kind of killing my win percentage. I was 4-2 in dynasty, so for reference, I'm in 13 leagues overall, not including best ball. But dynasty we did pretty well. Devy we did pretty well. Rough start redraft, but we're gonna get back. We had some Akers, we had some Robinson. It was a tough little start there, but we're getting back, and you're gonna be making some moves with me because I will certainly be attacking the waiver wire after week 1 in a lot of those redraft leagues. So I'll be making these moves with anyone out there doing so. Let's get into some week 1 recap stuff. There are a lot of things to talk about, namely, primarily the injury to Dak Prescott. I'm wearing an NFC East jersey here. As a Colts fan, I am secondarily the biggest Giants fan in the world this week after that win over the Tennessee Titans, keeping things kind of close there. But yeah, man, the Dallas Cowboys looked rough, obviously having the Dak injury kind of on top of all the issues that they were having. The thumb will be out here for a little bit. So I just kind of wanted to get your take, guys. I know we're going to have some specific transactions related to the Cowboys later in the show, but what's your just initial reaction to the injury, and what are you doing with these players in general from the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, so I'll start off with that. The one thing of positive for any Cowboy fan or Cowboy owner, player owner, was Ezekiel Elliott looked good. Looked fresh, looked healthy, had a little bit of a burst. Was probably the most electric player in a sense out there on the field. CeeDee Lamb looked horrible, but had 11 targets. Dak, as you kind of mentioned, got injured towards the end of the game, but was really underachieving. So for my take, I think this is a situation where people are going to really overreact to the Dallas team. If you drafted CeeDee Lamb, you don't want to unload him or sell while he's low. And then you also want to look at people like Zeke, and you want to look at like a Dalton Schultz. Just because Cooper Rush is going to be the quarterback, or whoever they kind of determine for the next 4 to 6 weeks is going to be the quarterback, doesn't mean the end of the world for these guys. They were still kind of featured in the offense. They were still high usage guys. The problem I saw ultimately for the Cowboys was the line, wasn't that great, but Dak Prescott played poorly. Adam, you and I talked about this a lot this past offseason. Could Dak ever get back to being Dak? And I frankly didn't see it. It might be a blessing in disguise for this Dallas offense in a sense that he might be injured. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I can't agree more. One of the things from last year, though, when Cooper Rush was in, he targeted he targeted his receivers a lot. Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, they both were seeing 10+ targets when he was in. So I don't think there's going to be an issue for CeeDee Lamb at all this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel like this is a situation people could end up overreacting to and kind of paying the price. I also feel like across the league, kind of as a general statement, offensive lines performed rather poorly week one. I don't know. I mean, a lot of them weren't playing a ton in preseason. I'm sure that has something to do with it. But offensive line play, I mean, if you were on Twitter at all today, you saw players on the Panthers blocking each other. You saw, all major gaffes in the Green Bay game. You saw major gaffes in the Colts game, like O-line issues everywhere. Even from bigger name Pro Bowl type players. So certainly that's, another thing that I wouldn't get too crazy, ready to overreact to, especially if you have a running back, for instance, that struggled week one due to O-line play. Speaking of that, so head over to the LA Rams, where Cam Akers is kind of the talk, and Cam Akers and Allen Robinson really. But Daryl Henderson kind of led the show with his magnificent 3.4 yards per carry, which was above the 2.9 average that the team had. Now, Henderson's usage is definitely enticing, so I'm not going to, try to knock that. But certainly, if you had any of these Rams running backs, you're a little concerned, right? Because efficiency looked like it was going to be non-existent. Granted, this is a good front they were going up against. But guys, what are we thinking about these Rams players? Is it much of the same, or is this a situation where you're kind of freaking out about them?
I'm not freaking out so much. I'm just going to kind of chalk it up to week one. They looked rusty. Both teams actually did. So I just kind of want to see what's going to happen forward, maybe another week or two, to see if that's that split like it was, or if Cam Akers starts showing up.
Cool. Chris?
Yeah, so I just want to clear some things up first. First of all, I heard a lot of rhetoric about Matthew Stafford's arm, and that was the issue, and that's why the Rams' offense was such a problem. I didn't really see Stafford's arm issues. I thought he looked more healthy than he did towards the end of the season last year, so that wasn't a concern. What was concerning is the offensive line poor play. Losing Whitworth, we knew that was going to kind of hinder this offense, and that, throughout the last 2-3 years, it definitely has hindered him every time he's been out or retired and unretired. So maybe they're hoping he retires again and saves the day. What I think has to happen, though, is you talked about some of these offensive lines, kind of struggling week one. Look at a lot of these systems. You had the McVay tree and you got the Kyle Shanahan tree all throughout this NFL. Those systems and those zone run schemes all take timing. And they also rely a lot of times, while we had some players, notable players have some gaps, a lot of times it's these no-name players where they're trying to get away with these, making do on the offensive line because the system kind of saves the day. But you need guys kind of not being left on the island. You need guys kind of working in continuity. And when that doesn't happen, people get exposed. So like an Austin Corbett or some of the guys in the Rams line basically got exposed when they got one-on-one cover, matchups. I think that things are going to be corrected, as the season kind of progresses. But there definitely was a handover, as Justin kind of alluded to. The Rams just didn't look like they were ready to play. Looked like they got kind of fooled themselves past off season. They didn't have any, preseason practices, and a big thing for this team. Matthew Stafford didn't throw all off season, so it kind of looked like that. The only person that showed up was Cooper Kupp. So for me, what I'm going to take out of it is you can ride Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson. Don't overreact. Robert Woods, struggled at the beginning of last year until Tom McVay said Robert Woods is going to be involved, and then Robert Woods got involved. So McVay acknowledged, Robinson needs to be more involved, so don't worry about that. He had plenty of, was out there for most of the snaps. The other part, in the Cam Akers situation, I don't know how to kind of answer that. I am a big believer that it was going to be a split. People kind of argue with me that, including my co-host Dan Mader. On D's Fantasy Football Show, but I thought Cam Akers was still going to be worth a top pick in a sense, where he was going to get a 60-40 or 55-45, kind of like the Dylan and Aaron Jones kind of roles, or Javonte and Melvin Gordon type of roles, where you can kind of have one guy still eat. I just didn't think Cam Akers was going to get 3 carries. I don't know where that happened. I know some of it was the flow of the game. I do expect it to kind of bounce back. And if I'm out there and I'm buying people who are overreacting to Cam Akers and, it's all over for Cam Akers and Henderson's going to be the guy, don't get mistaken. When it comes down to McVay prefers, other than when he had Todd Gurley, to split 2 guys, maybe even 3 at times. We had Malcolm Brown a couple of years ago. We've seen Henderson. That's how he got kind of started being involved as a split guy. So I wouldn't necessarily write off Cam Akers. Kerr Williams got hurt, so that's a good thing in the sense there won't be 3 guys. I just would be patient and buy Cam Akers stock if you can.
Yeah, it is a really, really interesting situation for the Rams. And what I'll say, you got to be really optimistic with what you saw out of James Robinson if you have Akers on your rosters. Now, luckily, the only rosters I do have Akers, I also have James Robinson, so there will be a direct swap on the depth chart right there. But yeah, I mean, coming back from very similar injuries in similar-ish time frames, obviously Akers had time over this past offseason to recover after he made a quick recovery, by the end of last season. But yeah, certainly after an Achilles injury, seeing James Robinson still look explosive, still be able to make big plays, both as a receiver and as a runner. Obviously, ETN mostly the receiver there, but certainly Robinson, when he was given those opportunities, played well. So I feel like you have to feel good at least that there is finally an example of someone who has played well post Achilles, because the one thing that if you were an Akers owner, you had to, face facts with is that there hasn't in recent memory come back from ACLs nothing anymore, realistically. Coming back from an Achilles, however, still kind of tough. There's still not been a lot of recent examples of it going well, or at least returning completely to, the level of play prior. But James Robinson kind of gives you at least some hope, I would think at least. Moving on to another injury, another very unfortunate injury. TJ Watt will be missing a few weeks here. The Steelers in most scoring settings were the defense won week 1, and they have an enticing matchup this next upcoming week. So, guys, I know, again, we'll be talking about them a little bit later, so apologies, but is this a situation where, he is a dominant force, and he was doing crazy things at the line of scrimmage on against an offensive line that everyone kept trying to tell me, the Bengals fixed the offensive line. The Bengals fixed the offensive line all offseason. That's all I hear. And listen, Justin, I know you're a Bengals fan. I'm from the Cincinnati area originally, so I am invested in this. They upgraded the offensive line. Upgraded, fixed. Very different terms. They
very different. Yes.
Close to league average from very bad. That's what happened. They didn't fix anything. That's what I was trying to tell my Bengals fan friends all off season. But at any rate, TJ Watt kind of made a massacre of that upgraded offensive line week 1, and then goes out with an injury. So guys, my question is, can they continue to be a dominant fantasy defense where they're getting a ton of turnovers or making a ton of plays without such a, defensive MVP level player?
So let's address the Cincinnati offensive line, since I'm not a biased person situation. I agree with you, Adam, though. One of the things I kept trying to point out is the upgrade was in the run blocking department. It was not in the pass blocking department. They added guys like Collins and Karras who struggle as pass protectors, as we saw yesterday. The Steelers, in fact, what they lived off of was turnovers. And I think that, Watt definitely affects that. So it's going to kind of damper some of their production, of course. Having the edge rusher is huge. We all know the NFL's built on getting how much pressure can you get in the guys. But it does help you against some of the more average offenses where if you can cause turnovers, they upgraded. They're better. They looked way better against the run than they had last year. Pittsburgh's defense can still kind of, hold serve to a degree. It might not be an elite defense, but against certain matchups, it's still a good defense that you can kind of play accordingly.
Cool. And then our last little game that I want to make sure we talk about before we started getting into some actions that we're going to make, some transactions that we're going to be making in week 2, is Monday Night Football from last night. So, guys, what's our takeaway here? Man, it looked a lot like same old Russ to me. I don't know how you guys feel, but there wasn't, this enlightenment where he can throw to the middle. That didn't quite happen. Certainly, still great balls deep to the outside. Great at it. Amazing deep ball to the outside. And that is more or less it. I think he's still going to kind of struggle against the teams that he was naturally going to struggle against kind of, with that skill set. And, this new offense change of scenery isn't going to change that. He's still going to be electric at times. You saw him moving around the pocket really, really well. He did make some good throws. He missed some good throws, but he didn't play all preseason. So I think most of that you can knock to Russ. I think Russ is going to be a good quarterback. But I think a lot of people maybe assumed that Seattle was holding him back, when in reality, I think he's going to be a similar-ish player, that has a better running game, better offensive line, better defense, but nonetheless, he himself probably pretty similar. Guys, what were your takeaways from Monday Night Football, if anything? The Javonte Williams usage was promising, by the way. Throw that out there. He looked good too.
Yeah, he did. He looked great. The split between him and Gordon wasn't as much as I thought. I think Javonte took a lot more of the piece of the pie than I thought he was going to. I thought it was going to be closer to a 50-50, and it looked more like a 70-30 split. So yeah, that was a good takeaway. And Geno looked great. Geno looked like he had been studying behind all those great quarterbacks he's been behind.
Penny did too. Seattle's offense was, I see Chris smirking because I know he's about to, a lot of I told you so's about the Seattle team as a whole, who Tariq Woolen, who we've been talking about all offseason as an aside, played pretty well as well. But yeah, Chris, tell us about the Seattle offense that looked pretty freaking efficient.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that people are going to be down on was, of course, DK Metcalf only had 7 catches for 36 yards. You're definitely encouraged in full point PPR by the 7 catches. You realize the volume is going to be there. And that, when you look at the matchup, basically, he was being shadowed the entire game. That's why he kind of struggled to get down the field. It wasn't that he was matched up with, the average guys. He was average people, had big time, coverage on him. So that's encouraging, I think. Offensively, Rashad Penny looks good. The young tackles looks good overall. I mean, this is the first time since 1970 that 2 rookie tackles have started an NFL game at the beginning of the season. So it was really encouraging, I think, overall for Seattle. As going back to what you kind of kicked off with this, Adam, was the Russ question and kind of what did Denver look like. I think that Denver's offense and Russ in particular, you were encouraged because you said, it looked like what you saw in Seattle. Well, until last year, Russ had been banked on a top 10 quarterback, if not, smelling the top 5 most years. You've seen a reduction in the rushing yards. That's a huge thing. He did look, spry last night, but didn't necessarily run the ball, which is what people in fantasy care about. Still had a good start. So if you started for Russell Wilson, you weren't hurt. What you were disappointed by was, the red zone efficiency. That should get better with timing and, kind of improvement. But I do have some concerns as to kind of express Denver's offense in general. Number one, we kind of warned you about Nathaniel Hackett and the Green Bay coaching staff, and we've seen that, we'll get to the Jets maybe eventually, but that those coaching staff might be a little overrated, especially the tree, and that they can make some questionable calls because Aaron Rodgers masks a lot. In particular, Aaron Rodgers seemed to mask a lot was he looked for Devontae Adams consistently in the red zone because the red zone offense is pretty uncreative overall. And you kind of saw that with Denver. They had some struggles with, timing, with clock management, and also just kind of missed throws. Russell improved. Overall, I think Denver's offense is going to be what you kind of hoped it was. Judy was the big guy I took out of that all the questions, what Judy's involvement going to be. Is it going to be a Sutton or Judy? I think that we kind of, on this show, I've been kind of encouraging you to get both because they're both going to eat. Lockett and, DK both ate. So why wouldn't it be any different here? And I think Javonte and Melvin Gordon, you're excited. Melvin Gordon definitely got a share of the carries, wasn't necessarily as involved in the passing attack or as many plays. But I think both of you guys, if you're a Melvin Gordon over Javonte Williams owner, you weren't, you're happy. You kind of like I said, I referred to Green Bay situation with Dylan and Aaron Jones. There's a lot of times, the future in fantasies, particularly in backfields, is you're going to have multiple guys you can kind of eat off. That second running back is quite often going to be kind of a flex option for you. So that's where I think this is kind of shined out that you still have a flex option in Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, agreed. We got a comment, kind of the elephant in the room, from fellow belly up guy Kevin Wilson. Russ's coach needs to trust him late in games. Apparently, you kind of talked about some of the problems with the coaching staff and their tree. I think we can agree that between time management and decision making, that was one of the worst single minutes of coaching that I've seen in quite a bit. Like that was they did McCarthy proud. I'll say that for Hackett. He did McCarthy proud with his game management there at the end. Any comments on that before we take a quick break transition? All right, cool. Well, we are going to move into some streaming options at the QB and defense. Before we do that, we are going to get a quick word from our sponsor, True Classic.
Football is back, baby, and our new sponsor, True Classic, wants you to look and feel your best even after a couple of brewskis or going full force on your fantasy football draft. Sure, it's football season, but it's also butt-to-couch season. Luckily, True Classic has the absolute best-fitting clothing a man can buy. Snug in the arms and chest with a little extra space in the torso, their t-shirts are designed to keep you cozy and highlight your best assets no matter what you're up to. So if your special someone is upset that you're watching football all day, at least you can look good doing it. True Classic has already helped over 2 million men find the perfect fit at an affordable price. Our listeners get access to the best deal they offer. For a limited time only, get 25% off with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at TrueClassic.com. Almost all men's t-shirts are designed to look good on skinny models with six-packs, but most of us aren't packing anything but a few beers. Fellas, you are wearing the wrong clothes. True Classic tees taper off towards the bottom, but they fit tighter around the chest and shoulders. It's time to highlight your best attributes with a t-shirt you can always confidently throw on. It's about time to get your fit together, so upgrade your wardrobe with True Classic and get 25% off at TrueClassic.com with promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Free shipping included on purchases over $100. That's 25% off at TrueClassic.com with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. If there's one bet you should make this football season, it's on True Classic. True Classic, look good, feel good.
And we're back. We actually lost Chris there. I was kind of surprised that he had given up the opportunity to dunk on Nathaniel Hackett there at the end. Surprised he passed that up, and it was because he had frozen and left, but we got him back just in time to go over some streaming options at both QB and defense. And we're going to get straight into that with my top three guys that I'm going to go ahead and stream if I'm streaming QBs. And this is going to be pretty similar between the three of us. So, I mean, let's just talk about Wentz and Ryan now, as all three of us, took some variation of these guys. So, I'm the biased guy. I don't want to talk about Ryan. So, Chris, you're going to be the most negative about him. So you you go ahead and you can talk about him. You can be the voice of reason with Matt Ryan.
Yeah, so for myself, I think Matt Ryan is a good play this week. Isn't a guy that's just like buy for the whole season. You like the volume that you saw. You like the connection you saw with Pittman. As the game kind of progressed, him and Paris Campbell started getting more and more on the same page. What you kind of struggle with is the notion of him throwing 50-something times a game. Again, it reminded me a lot of Phillip Rivers, Adam, so I'm sorry there. And I don't know how it's going to pan out. From this, like Colts fans might be happy about that, or it could just be the same old, same old. But I think this week, you're looking at a defense that he can kind of exploit. It's easy matchup. There shouldn't be a lot of pass pressure, and the offensive line should play a lot better than they did last week for the Colts. So overall, I think Matt Ryan's a solid play this week.
All right, and then Justin, if you have anything to comment on it there, please do, by all means. And then otherwise, I want to hear your thoughts on Carson Wentz.
Okay. Pretty much the only thing I can add to Matt Ryan is he threw 50 times. It was the third most in week one. I don't expect that to change against Jacksonville. And then it was for 352 yards, which was also the second most in week one. So I'm hoping he just continues that trend.
Couple of drop touchdowns
moving into
there,
Carson Wentz.
Just real quick. Yeah,
yes.
A couple of drop touchdowns. So, I mean, you certainly could have had a couple of things change slightly, and you have a pretty massive game from Matt Ryan in fantasy from that perspective. Just to, add on there. But, yeah, Justin, take it away, Carson Wentz.
All right. So I like Carson Wentz this week. He looked great. He threw four touchdowns. he rotated between all his receivers. Each one was good. Everybody's on the waiver wire for Washington right now. But he has Detroit this week. They finished 31 on the week with their defense. They allowed Hurts to throw for 243 yards, which he's not that great of a passer. He's more of a rusher. So I think Carson Wentz can outdo that for sure. And then Detroit has a great offense, or maybe not great, but good. They're going to stay in games and they're going to put up points. And I think that's going to force Carson Wentz to have to put up points as well.
Let me tell you, that Detroit offense, passing-wise, got a lot better there in the second half. Because run game was great all game long, but second half, they turned it on passing-wise. But we'll get into that. But I'll talk about Baker Mayfield first. Listen, that's a tough week one assignment. The Cleveland defense, we've talked about it a lot. They don't always have, those defining moments of like amazing play, but they are a solid unit at pretty much every position. JOK made some great plays. He's someone I really loved when he came out. Obviously, they have Myles Garrett. Obviously, they have the great secondary. And there were a lot of promising plays made by Baker Mayfield and the Carolina offense as a whole. And you did that without Christian McCaffrey being the monster receiver that we all expect him to be and still expect him to be. I mean, he still looked quick. You just didn't get points for that, 30-yard fumble recovery that he got when Baker dropped the ball off the snap. Unfortunately, you didn't get points for that. But he looked great. Christian McCaffrey did, and that gives, I think, Baker a really big opportunity to have a great game. When you have, a receiver like Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, you have just so many options. His connection with Robbie Anderson looked like one that was great, for as much as Robbie Anderson was talking about not wanting Baker Mayfield at quarterback. It looked great. You'll assume that DJ Moore is going to kind of get into the mix a little bit more. So honestly, I as much as you would have loved to see them get the win, and Baker did have the pick and did drop the ball. Overall, for that being week one and for him to have really not been, he didn't even get a full off season really. He was kind of adjusting for the first little bit of it. I'm going to go ahead and say that was a not bad first appearance for Wentz. So I think he's a good streaming option. Moving on to our next guy. And again, we have Wentz and Ryan. We also have Chris, and it pained me to not add Mariota to mine. But Chris, talk about Mariota. It frustrated me to no end, everyone in the industry just being so excited. Trey Lance didn't have the best fantasy game, but those 13 rushing attempts, show a lot for the future. But then you have Mariota, who we're not talking about, who had 12 rushing attempts for a lot more yards. But Chris, take it away.
Yeah, what's the cheat code in fantasy football at quarterback? Rushing quarterbacks. We see that every year. Marcus Mariota, the thing that we were excited about when he got drafted in the NFL was his use of his legs. We didn't kind of see that as much as we wanted to in Tennessee, but if he's been unleashed under Arthur Smith, and we kind of saw that there was a lot of pistol action, a lot of misdirection. And, another guy that's going to be kind of forgotten about, we were beating the drum all offseason was Cordell Patterson. Hey, he still plays. He's still good. But you're not going to expect him to rush for 130 yards again. So as a result, Mariota's numbers could go up even higher. This line looked pretty decent. The passing attack was kind of finding its rhythm as the game progressed. So I think that what we kind of saw from Marcus Mariota was, in a sense, a baseline, and it can only go up from here. So for me, this is a guy that you don't only want to stream. Could be an ad for the entire season. As long as he's a quarterback, I think he's a guy you could play. A lot of people have been beating the drum for Desmond Ridder to play. I don't see why LA is going to move on from a former number one quarterback for Desmond Ridder. So I think this guy, as long as he keeps playing well, doesn't turn the ball over. We had some, kind of gas with the fumbles towards the end of the season, towards the end of the game. But overall, Marcus Mariota was aggressive, which we haven't said, at all for his career yet. And he looked great as a result of that. So the rushing with his legs and being aggressive down the field with the Arthur Smith mix, yeah, I'm buying.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely agree there. We have one more quarterback we haven't talked about. That's Justin. You spoke about Jared Goff, so definitely want to hear your take there. Like I said, their offense second half looked a lot better.
Yeah, it definitely did, and I kind of touched on it earlier. Detroit, their defense just isn't that great, so their offense is going to have to carry them for the most part. And Goff finally has some weapons in Detroit this year that I think he can rely on, and is just going to put up the fantasy points for him. So he's only 13.7% rostered. And he only threw one interception, which was actually pretty good for him. So,
yeah. And again,
Adam,
Chris.
Just to kind of jump on, for Justice Jared Goff, I didn't have on my list. One of the things that really impressed me was the pace of Detroit play. If Detroit's going to play at this pace this entire season, that's another cheat code for fantasy football. So having a quarterback in an up-tempo offense that has great pace, lots of plays, could be a definite buy.
And even adding on to that, like we talked all off season, like, man, Chark is just such a weird fit for Goff, but the early signs are that it might actually work pretty well. And we definitely didn't have any concerns about Chark being a talented receiver. It was just how well can he mesh with Goff. And at least early, I'm kind of optimistic about them kind of moving forward.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of where one of the narratives in the offseason actually met on the field, where all offseason you've heard about how Chark and Goff have been connected and how they've been working together. And it was obvious they're definitely on the same page. And let's not forget, Gardner Minshew didn't have the most strongest arm in the world, but he loves him from DJ Chark. So Jared Goff, when he was in the Rams, did throw the ball down the field more than 2 yards. So it is possible for DJ Chark to eat down the field too.
Absolutely. All right, we're moving on to streaming some defenses. So we'll talk me first. I have the Steelers, which we talked about earlier, Panthers and Browns. A lot of these will be repeats here as well. But and Chris, which one of these do you have? You have Panthers, yeah? Is that correct?
Yeah, I have the Panthers. I have all these defenses because I like the matchups. So which one would you like me to comment on?
I want you to talk about the Panthers. I was pretty sure that one.
Yeah, I know that, we kind of saw the Cleveland win the game. People talked a lot about Brissett kind of bringing the game back, and the Panthers defense isn't what you hoped it to be. It definitely wasn't as shiny as it could be, but you saw a lot of positives. They were able to kind of shut down the passing attack. They did a pretty good job versus the run. And they're playing the New York Giants. I know you have the jersey on, Adam, and you're a Giants fan today because they, helped beat the Titans.
Oh, that ends tomorrow. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, the Titans pretty much lost that game, and I don't think the Giants necessarily won that game. The defense, offensively, Daniel Jones continues to have turnover issues. That's why he was getting reamed out on the sideline. So I think that's not something you kind of worry about. As long as they can kind of contain Saquon Barkley, he doesn't run romper room on the kind of Panthers. Their pass rush, their secondary is a tough matchup for the Giants, so I like them this week.
Absolutely agreed. That man right there, Brian Burns, should be getting him some Daniel Jones upcoming shortly. Justin, I know you have, let me look really quick. You have the Steelers, so I want to go ahead and share with us why the Steelers are going to continue to play well.
I think a lot of it's going to be with Mac Jones if he's in or out. If he's out, I think they're just going to eat up a backup quarterback. So Minkah Fitzpatrick, he looked great last weekend with a couple interceptions, and I think he continues with that stretch this week.
Yeah, no question there. All right, and then of course Cleveland. I mean, what do I have to say other than they're playing the Jets? They also have some offensive or some defensive talent themselves. Didn't have a crazy good fantasy game, but did get some turnovers, or a turnover at least, against Carolina. And Carolina should be a much better offense than the New York Jets. Although I will give the Jets credit. Michael Carter looked really good. Corey looked good. But as a whole, not great. Not great.
Yeah, that offensive line definitely didn't look good. And Ikawa struggled against Myles Garrett. The Jets don't even have an Ikawa to kind of, which he's a terrible pass protector, by the way. I kept saying that. And they don't have a guy like that to kind of, hold down Myles Garrett, so it could be a long day for Joe Flacco.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Chris, we pretty much just have the Broncos out of you.
Yeah, so I get to comment twice on defense. That seems to be my specialty in the fantasy thing. And, so the Broncos defense, we talked about how Geno looked. It was a lot of dink and dunk games. They held DK Metcalf with Patrick Surtain basically shadowed him the entire game. That was extremely encouraging. Patrick Surtain's only in his second season. He was one of the top-rated PFF guys towards the end of the season last year. He's making that ascension possibly as that next, top-tier corner. Then you have the kind of other guys left over from Denver. Von Miller's not there anymore, but you still have Chubb. You still have those linebackers. You still have Simmons in the secondary. And you have a nice matchup coming up this week. So I think Denver's defense can be a nice buy, and especially needing something to consider for long-term to add for your team.
I'll say the pass rush, they were quiet first half. Second half, Chubb just went off. He definitely looked like if he can continue that, the level of play he had in the second half, you're going to get a lot out of having the Broncos defense on your roster.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think the chances offense has to score some points and get up this game versus this past game where they didn't. You get a 14-0 with that defense, that pass rush gets turned up another level as well. Absolutely.
All right, Bengals, Steelers, and Browns again. Like I said, we kind of went through all of these again. So, Justin, is there anything that you think we missed talking about these threes you want to hit before we get
Bengals? He hasn't talked about.
Oh, we haven't talked about Bengals. You're right. Yeah.
So it's again the same thing. There's no Dak, backup quarterback. Cooper Rush is going to make mistakes. Cincinnati came into this season with one of the top defenses. It showed this weekend. Holding it should have been a way bigger slaughter than what it was, but they were able to hold Pittsburgh in the red zone quite a few times. So it didn't look as bad as what it was, and I don't think they'll have any problem holding Dallas back at all. And then the following week they have the Jets as well, so they should just feast there. So it's a good streamer for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, no, agreed. And that is something that's important to keep in mind too, is like when you can get a defense that you can chain a couple weeks together. Like I said, I had the Steelers in a couple spots this past week just because of that offensive line. And that kind of gave me the opportunity where I can use them back-to-back weeks and at least get, not have to worry about using my waiver spot on them,
right,
or on a defense. I can use it somewhere else for a week. But we are going to get a quick word from our sponsor, Manscaped. And then when we get back, we'll be talking transactions from the three of us. So make sure you stay tuned for that.
Football is back, baby. We're back to seeing Mahomes sling beautiful balls all over the field, and your friends at Manscaped are here to help you sling your beautiful balls all season long. With Manscaped's state-of-the-art tech, we'll have your weapon looking more loaded than the AFC West. Football may be rough, but your ball care doesn't have to be with Manscaped. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Meet the best valued bundle yet for the Manscaped Pocket Rockets, the Platinum Package. At quarterback, the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, a wily vet who makes sure the unit is running smoothly and scoring nonstop with proprietary advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower limits mistakes and protects the ball. Plus, it's waterproof, so the weather conditions are no issue. At running back, the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, built to bust through all the right holes. A hairless nostril just helps it keep a nose for the end zone. On the offensive line, we have our unsung heroes, the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and the Crop Reviver Ball Toner, the Trent Williams and Corey Lindsley of Sack Protection, standing strong to keep your boys fresh and clean through all four quarters. At wideout, the cleanest duo in the league, the Ultra Premium Body Wash and Ultra Premium 2-in-1 Shampoo plus Conditioner. With their rugged scent, they attract both the ball and all the ladies in the crowd. Plus, these two leave your skin and scalp feeling more hydrated. That means more plays on the field and less water breaks. At tight end, the product makes your end look tight. Manscaped's anti-chafing boxer briefs, a dedicated jewel pouch to increase ball handling and a cool, steady vibe thanks to their moisture-wicking fabric. On defense, there's only one thing you need, the aluminum-free Ultra Premium Deodorant. With refined cologne, quality fragrance, it keeps sweat and locker room scents from making any ground. Plus, it dries clear so the opponent won't even know what hit them. To top it all off, we throw in the best coach in the league, the Shred Travel Bag, as a free bonus. Built to hold the team together, this travel-size bag has a fumble-resistant zipper. This has got to be a Super Bowl winning roster, but don't take my word for it. Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASy. Manscaped for turning your player into an MVP.
All right, we're back. Welcome again to Belly Up Fantasy Live Tuesday edition, where we are talking some transactions to get your team right. You know, whether you won or lost week one, we're looking down the line for the championship. Of course, joined as always by Chris, adding Justin this week, who we are super excited to have and who we are going straight to. So Justin, here is your list of week 2 transactions. And this is the time where you get to really run wild, because go for it. This is all you, boss.
All right. Yeah, so this is going to be a bit of a hot take. I'm selling Deandre Swift in redraft leagues. He had a heck of a week 1 outing, but my fear is Jamal Williams is just going to eat into that. He took 2 touchdowns from him already, and I don't think we're going to get 120 plus rushing yards out of Swift every week. I think it's just going to be matchup based for him. So that's a big reason why I'm selling him this week or overall.
We'll let you get straight back into that. But something that I will say makes me not hate this is that you have to be a little discouraged if you're a Swift owner, that since old head coach has become the play caller on offense as well, the receiving value of Swift and really the running back position as a whole has dropped like a rock. Like, the running backs are not getting thrown to nearly as much as they were beginning of last season. So that certainly hurts, because that's one of Swift's best characteristics.
Yes, it is. And the whole Jamal Williams, it's not just a this year thing. It's been a reoccurring thing ever since he's gotten to Detroit. So this is nothing new. We saw it last year. I think it just keeps continuing this year.
Now, Justin, quick question. His coaching staff is from the New Orleans tree, where Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara both kind of shared the backfield. Can DeAndre Swift kind of play the Alvin Kamara role and still be fantasy relevant, or top 5 guy like Alvin Kamara was?
I think he can, as long as the split stays more closer to like a 70-30. But if it starts creeping to the 60-40, 45-55 split like we've seen in the past, I just don't think it's going to be as likely unless he busts out a lot of big plays.
All right.
I just will say one real quick, Adam. Just one caveat I did notice in that game was, you talked about Jamal Williams kind of stealing the touchdowns. DeAndre Swift had big runs before being taken out. It wasn't necessarily just he had, Jamal Williams was the goal line back. It was DeAndre Swift ran really far, got tired. Jamal Williams came in, scored a touchdown. So just kind of want to clarify that a little bit.
Yep. And I think we might see a lot of that in between the 20s for him. He's very known for busting out those big plays, and then he's going to rest when it comes time, when he gets him in the red zone, and Jamal's just going to come in and take him away.
Yeah, definitely something that if you're a Swift owner, you'll be eyeing. Were those Jamal Williams red zone touches, were they fluky, or is that kind of the plan going forward? That's just something we're going to have to continue to kind of watch for sure. Take it away, Justin.
Okay. Moving forward, dropping Mike Davis. Kenyon Drake was the guy there this week. It showed. I think he had 11 carries. But more importantly, most of the valuable rushing, I think, is still just going to come from Lamar Jackson. When they get in the red zone, if they're going to rush, Lamar Jackson's going to rush that touchdown, not Kenyon Drake, not Mike Davis. So I think he's a safe play to drop.
Agreed.
Moving on to Greg Dortch. He's one of my top wide receivers, if not my number one I'm targeting this week. Arizona didn't look good. Rondell Moore, we have no idea when he's coming back. And Greg Dortch was out on the field for 91% of the snap count and saw 9 targets for 7 receptions, 63 yards, 0 touchdowns. I think he'll get at least 1 this week and see the same numbers.
Yeah, I mean, his snap count was definitely something that you got to be happy about if you have him, and really if you have Rondell Moore, because that seems to be kind of the role envisioned for him, which is why I'm not necessarily going out straight to buy him, but certainly if he's someone I can get for nothing, like no fab, for instance, then I'll take it for sure, because Dortch is going to have value until Rondell returns for sure.
I agree. Moving on to CD, I think he's definitely a good trade for candidate. Buy him wherever you can. There's going to be owners that are tilting on the Dallas offense, thinking Cooper Rush isn't gonna amount to much. So he's just a target that I'm shooting for. And then for a deeper ad would be Ben. I'm hoping I pronounced it right. Skronek for Los Angeles Rams. Let's see. Where is he? Right there. He was out on the field for 88% of the snap count. He's filling the role for Van Jefferson while he's out for a few more weeks. And when he was on the field, he saw 6 targets, which was second most behind Cooper Kupp for the wide receivers.
Yeah. It was disgusting.
It is disgusting, but if it gets you points, then I mean, we had this all last season of some of the dumb wide receivers getting trot out by the Jaguars, where it was like, well, feels gross, but if you got points, like I will.
And there's one other one I want to mention, just to keep your eye on as the weeks go forward. Zach Wilson, as his recovery starts inching forward. This is more so for like super flex, or if your league just likes to hoard the quarterbacks. The Jets had the most passing attempts in week 1 with 59. So if that continues, Zach Wilson's just going to have so many opportunities, and their receiving core is pretty stout. So I don't think there's going to be an issue if they're throwing 60 times a game.
100% agreed. Okay, cool. Chris.
Yeah, so getting to some of my transactions and ads, I think Jeff Wilson Jr. obviously is a must-add. Elijah Mitchell went down. We saw Jeff Wilson Jr. was clearly the number 2 back. I know, Price Davis wasn't active, so there's talk about him. Mason was active. He's more of a special teams guy, but he's got a lot of talk about, being involved as well. Would not necessarily be Davis Price, which, this is a 49er, so it wouldn't surprise me. But I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is the guy that you want to have because he has the utmost upside. This is one of the few guys that can become, a potential 3-down back. When last time Elijah Mitchell missed a significant time, Jeff Wilson Jr. took over, had a couple games where he was over 30 points. Mostly just comes to volume. This offense rarely features a guy who, in the passing attack and the running attack. Usually it's one or the other. Jeff Wilson Jr. kind of gets the get out of jail free card in that backfield where he gets used for both. So I think he's a must add this week.
Yeah, agreed. He's been this elite handcuff before, so no notes.
The next one's going to be Julio Jones. Go ahead, Justin.
No, I was just going to ask. I think I saw somewhere that they sign Marlon Mac tonight, and I was just going to ask if they did, if that affects anything for you.
What it doesn't affect anything for me now. What it kind of ensures you is Jeff Wilson Jr. is not the most durable guy either. So Elijah Mitchell, although he notoriously gets hurt, Jeff Wilson Jr. will probably be your guy for the next 4 weeks maybe before he gets hurt. So I think that's Marlon Mac is a guy to have on your radar down the road. So that's a good point, Justin. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Oh, Chris? Oh, no.
Might have lost him again.
Yep, not again. His laptop does like to crap out on us. We have an amazing freeze frame of his face here, though. We'll go ahead and start talking about mine until he's able to return. I'm going to go ahead and say Juwan Johnson is a steal right now if he continues to get the usage that he was getting this past week. He was on the field for 70+% of the snaps. I want to say it was like 74 or something in that ballpark. And he was running routes a good portion. I think he was maybe 3rd or so on the team as far as routes are concerned. So while he didn't have a big game, the usage is very encouraging. And obviously tight end is a position where you want to get any edge you can. If you can get some value out of Juwan Johnson, then I would go ahead and say take it. But we're going to go back to Chris's list now that he has returned. Julio Jones, which is a great option, played really well in his debut for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Chris, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, they're trying to silence me, Adam. I'm trying to keep all this great advice away from you guys. I don't know what's going on. So Julio Jones is a guy that I think I must add. Chris Godwin might not got hurt significantly with his hamstring, but that he wasn't kind of 100% as it was. What looked great to me at least, was Julio Jones looked explosive, got clocked 20 miles an hour at one point with one of his runs, and he was taking jet sweeps. I mean, I didn't even see that in Atlanta very often, Adam. So I was excited about the usage, about the potential of Julio Jones, and with Godwin and Evans having injury concerns for most of their last couple of years, I think Julio is a must-add. Sterling Shepard is another guy that just won't die. We keep getting exciting about all these other receivers for the New York Giants. It was Tony, it was going to be Robinson, was a guy I was kind of touting. Halliday's obviously somebody's kind of fallen down the food chain, but we know Sterling Shepard seems to be Daniel Jones' best friend. Daniel Jones loves him, Sterling Shepard. Whenever he's out there, Sterling Shepard was supposed to be active this past game. Wound up playing the most snaps of any receiver, had the most yards, had explosive touchdown, and so I think it goes nowhere but up for Sterling Shepard and his usage, because he was already the most used receiver. So Sterling Shepard, unfortunately, we're back. Our must add this week.
We are back with Sterling Shepard. My God, you couldn't have said it any better with. He just will not go away.
My next guy is a little bit maybe a controversial guy, where some people might kind of talk about snaps he played, the usage. He only ran 14 routes. He was only involved 5 times, but he had 2 touchdowns. Not sure Hilliard. What I saw is kind of matched what I've heard the hype all off season. A guy that the Tennessee Titans love to utilize, that is clearly the backup to Derrick Henry. They already talked about that he would be utilized both in the passing third down back and early down situation, because he showed that he can handle both. He's one of the explosive guys. I mean, this guy shined out last year, played really well towards the end of the season. People kind of forgot about him. Had a great stint when he was in Cleveland a couple games. This guy keeps shining out every gets a chance to time. Similar to Deandre Johnson. And Hilliard kind of found a home for himself here, a coaching staff that likes to throw the ball. So I think when you look at it, Hilliard's a great handcuff, but a guy that maybe have flex option moving down. Tannehill looked at him in the backfield. This is a guy they're going to kind of move around for matchups, and might be definitely a guy for a full point PPR leagues, but even half point or standard leagues might be a guy to have on your radar.
Yeah, agreed. Whenever you can get a handcuff that has outside value, it's always nice.
And like I said, I love the pass catching thing. I think they're going to look Ben White to kind of get this guy involved. And finally, Marcus Mariota. We talked about that earlier. I'm not going to kind of elaborate, but we talked about the cheat code. What's the cheat code for quarterbacks running? What's also nice when they throw the ball down the field, and we haven't seen Pitts have that breakout game. We saw London kind of get more involved. This offense in general has nowhere to go but up. I'm excited for Marcus Mariota and his Atlanta offense.
And Pitts was getting nice targets too. It just didn't work out for him, but he was certainly looking for Pitts quite a bit. Moving over, I talked about Juwan Johnson. So Chris, if you want to beat me over the head there, go ahead. I've already done it before. We've already discussed Jeff Wilson. So we're going to move on to Rex Burkhead. Coaching staff talked about how Rex Burkhead, I didn't realize that he had outsnapped Dameon Pierce or there was Lovie Smith, in his press conference after the game, talking about, he didn't realize how drastic the usage difference was. But he's like, man, that's our third down guy. And that's our, whenever the game script becomes one where we're down and we need to pass a lot, Rex Burkhead's going to be the guy. If that's the case, I'm going to let you in on a secret. The week 1 Colts might be the best matchup that Houston has all year, because the week 1 Colts have been awful for the last decade. Just bad. So there's nowhere to go but down for the Houston Texans. They will be in pass situations quite a bit. And with that, Rex Burkhead will have some nice PPR value, some nice flex value at the very, very least. If he can get 10 carries and then plus a handful of catches out of the backfield, I'm going to go ahead and call that a success, even if he's not an efficient runner, which he is not. And I don't know if this offensive line early on at least will be able to have many of those, but we'll see.
How the hell is Green not starting, by the way?
I was waiting for that. I was like talking shit about their offensive line, and yep. But yes, I have no idea. With you there. Staying in the AFC South though, Kyle Phillips in the second half there was getting some awesome utilization. He was only on for about half the snaps, but he made them count. Got an awesome target share on the snaps he was on the field. I think that they are quickly falling in love with this kid. He's going to have a big role. And Chris, I believe you'll be taking the win on that bet if I had a week one guess to this point. Yeah, man, Kyle Phillips is someone that I'm adding in a couple spots for sure, and I would recommend people do the same. And then my one buy that I want to talk about is Courtland Sutton, because the ways he was being utilized for Denver, and I talked crap about Russ a little bit to begin the show, and Russ is a great quarterback, just not going to be elevated to this elite stature that I think was getting thrown around a lot, when he first moved to Denver. However, the ways Sutton was getting utilized, it didn't work out in the ways that I think you wanted to envision, but that's perfect. If you are a fantasy team that can kind of read between the lines, they were using Sutton to go deep quite a freaking bit. And the one thing I will say about Russ, his deep ball to the outside is one of the best in the league. He can, make that play quite a bit. I think that was a Russ type of thing that he was not hitting those this past weekend or yesterday. And Sutton's going to be the one that is the beneficiary there. So again, he only had like 3 receptions for 50-ish yards, but he was getting targeted quite a bit. So yeah, man, he's someone who I think is going to have a monster season with Russell Wilson. I think this is the DK Metcalf half of that that system that we were kind of talking about earlier.
Yeah, I think you made some great points, Adam. I love the usage, but I would also like the usage was we saw him run deep routes last year, but kind of the decoy almost. Just that's basically all he did run was deep routes. Right. He was utilized all over the field, and it reminded me a lot of Devontae Adams' usage in Green Bay. So that's why I was definitely encouraged, as you kind of pointed out, by his usage.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think the difference is that he's not a decoy when he's going deep anymore, and part of it is that he's doing other things. It's not, I'm just going to stay on top of him and he'll never do anything. He is a viable deep threat every time he goes deep, because Russ is the type of quarterback that'll understand he doesn't need a lot of separation to get a win just at the catch point. With that, I hope you guys have gotten some transaction advice that can help you win your week 2, and then ultimately we're all playing to go get some championships. We like to on this show finish up with one key takeaway from the week. What did you learn? What are you quoting? What are you trying to make sure that you are keeping in mind throughout the week? So Chris, what's your biggest takeaway, biggest mantra of week 1?
Yeah, I think you guys are going to kind of hit on this. I'm going to keep it quick because I want to hit on something else real fast. And I think that's just don't overreact to week 1. We kind of warned you before the week 1. We warned you all off season. It's week 1. Coaches coach differently. Some guys still adjust. Some are better at adjusting than others. Some are better at game planning the first week than others. So there's a lot of things that kind of move. Offensive lines and defensive lines will get better. Tackling will improve. So there's a lot of things to be determined. But I want to real quickly use up some other time just to kind of mention one other guy to kind of keep on your radar. And I think this is a guy that I hope we talk more about in upcoming shows. Is Taysom Hill a cheat code at tight end? You always want to buy tight ends who score touchdowns, but this guy's going to be manufactured yardage, whether it's through the running, passing, or however. That's more valuable than a lot of these other tight ends after you get past the top 5 to 7 guys. So I just want to throw Taysom Hill as a guy that might be somebody you're adding over maybe Juwan Johnson, as Adam kind of alluded to. I was going to kind of go at. But Taysom Hill is definitely a guy that might have a role, especially if you can utilize in the red zone, as Justin talked about some of these guys like Jamal Williams.
Listen, man, I like the snap count, buddy. Juwan Johnson has finally overcome the Adam Troutman problem. At least it seems.
No, like Cox didn't.
Yes, but Troutman was only on the field to block. At least Juwan was running routes all of the time. Whether he was targeted, We'll work on that. That's upcoming, hopefully. It's a waiver claim. We're taking shots here. But Justin, any big takeaways you had for week one, or that you want people to keep in mind, throughout the season, or just now?
Basically, just like Chris said, don't overreact. Don't tilt. Don't start selling players just because of one bad week. Give them a couple chances at least. Don't sell them until about week 3. And then one of the things I probably would have learned from week 1 is just don't believe in all the preseason hype coming into the season. Don't get your hopes up on some players and then watch them crumble. So, yes.
Yes.
George Pickens was one.
Absolutely.
Denver's run. Damian Pierce was mine. So, along with many others. So,
yes, good stuff there. My one piece that I'll throw out there, just because I don't think it's counter to that when you really think about it, but I think people might find it difficult to mesh the two together. But yes, don't overreact to week 1. Don't be the one that's panicking, overreacting. However, while making good decisions, not overreacting, calmly, be the one that is going to all of your league mates. I want to buy this. I want to buy this. Like, be the one that's initiating everything. Be active trading in every league that you are in. And that will, if you just win by a little bit in 75% of your trades and you make 20 of them, you've made a lot of ground really quickly there. So that's kind of something to keep in mind, is don't panic sell, but make a well thought out decision. See if you can buy from someone that is panic selling, or even if not, see if you can get fair value for someone that you like, and get rid of someone that, value was the right pick at the time, but you don't like their chances going forward. So yeah, just make sure you're making moves. That goes for dynasty especially, but really redraft too. You just want to initiate as much as possible. A lot of times the teams that are making a ton of transactions can do really, really well.
That's a great point, Adam. Always stick around guys that people are getting panicky on, see if you could buy low. It's an excellent point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, that is wraps for this week of Belly Up Fantasy Live. Make sure you're hitting the Wednesday show tomorrow. I was on that last week. It was a lot of fun. So definitely make sure you are tuning in there. Obviously, they're doing a start sit show on Sunday. So make sure you're tuning in there. Justin, what else are you doing? Where can people follow you at? What's up in your world?
I'm not real big on social media yet. I'm still getting around to that. I don't know my handles very well. So as I get going with this, I'm going to get those more. I'll have those for next time. But yeah, Chris right now I'm just hoping to join in. Hopefully I'll be invited back, and because this was a great time. I really enjoyed this, you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So you're doing ranking stuff, right?
Yes. I'm doing rankings over on the Belly Up site. So you should see that every week come up.
Yeah, so definitely check those out. Those will be awesome. Obviously, you heard Justin is very knowledgeable. So go ahead and check those out. When you're initiating those trades, go look at the rankings. Chris,
yes.
What's the schedule for the Belly Up MDFF show this upcoming week? When can we see you?
Well, I will be rejoining my co-host Dan Mader on Thursday for our look ahead, or claimpoint Thursdays. He'll be doing his Wednesday show, Look Ahead Wednesdays, where he kind of covers the early games. Thursday, we'll kind of be doing our predictions, what we expect to kind of happen, some of our buys and sells for the weekend. Then on Friday, we follow back up with our, ticket making, cashing tickets, opportunity to kind of, give you some betting tips, give you some ideas of a kind of do some DFS opportunity. We have a great giveaway this past month. If you can beat our host Dan Mader in the competition over the thing and enter a raffle at the end of the month, you can get a John Randall autographed jersey. I think it's something awesome to kind of play for. He did not finish first this past week, so there will be somebody else already entered. So join us on Friday for the opportunity, and hopefully we'll have some other great tips for when you somebody this next weekend.
Awesome. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We are so excited for week 2. Make sure you check out the other Belly Up Fantasy Live shows. Cheers.